Hazelight Studios is a relatively new video game development studio releasing their first game in 2018. And a lot of studios, both new and old, always say, oh, we're making a game that you won't believe, or we're doing things I've never done before, we're going to change the industry, blah, 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 blah. And then they will release something that is largely generic. However, when Hazelight says it, they put their money where their mouth is. When they released their first game, A Way Out, in 2018, a lot of people were praising it for being one of the best co-op experiences in years. Hazelight then one-upped themselves with their sophomore outing, It Takes Two, which won the Game Awards 2021 Game of the Year. At this point, Hazelight has become synonymous with high-quality, unique co-op experiences. But they now face an issue. After winning Game of the Year, where do you go from there? The answer to that is Split Fiction. Split Fiction was developed by Hazelight Studios, published by Electronic Arts, and was released on March 6, 2025 for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series consoles, and Windows PCs. And at the time of writing, it will be coming to Nintendo Switch 2 on June 5th, 2025. I played this game on my brother's Xbox Series S with him, so all footage you are seeing is from that platform and was recorded using the onboard recording software. But quick side note on that, Microsoft, what are we doing here? For those who don't know, in order to record clips more than a few minutes long on Xbox, you need to plug in an external drive. So in order to get 1 hour clips, like on my PlayStation, I had to plug in an SSD. Luckily, it wasn't too much of an issue as I already had a 2TB SSD lying around. But come on, Microsoft, there's got to be a better way to do this, seriously. In Split Fiction, you and a friend take control of two authors, a sci-fi artist named Mio and a fantasy artist named Zoe, who are eager to get published. Excited that Raider Publishing contacted them, asking them if they could publish their work, the two authors, among several others, all coagulate at their headquarters to get a tour and a breakdown of the process from the head of the company, J.D. Raider. However, it is clear that this is no ordinary publishing deal, as most of the authors are put into a machine known as the Machine. How original. The purpose of the machine is to search through the author's minds and extract the ideas they had without needing any actual work from the author themselves. Also, Raider Publishing can get tons of stories without ever having to pay the authors. And Mio, suspicious of what is happening, refuses to go into the machine, and after a scuffle with security, ends up in the same extraction pod as Zoe, forcing the two to work together and live out each other's stories and ideas as they try to find a way to get back to the real world and stop Raider. First and foremost, I want to discuss the co-op aspect of this game. This game is a two-player co-op adventure and is strictly that. You cannot play this game solo. You need another person to play this game with. But luckily, Hazelight, probably knowing that this might be difficult for some people to get someone to play the game with, has done a couple things to make it easier. Personally, I think the best thing they did is create the Friends Pass, which for fans of the studio is nothing new. The Friends Pass is a free version of the game you can download that allows you to play the game with someone who owns the full-fledged game. For example, Friend A pays for the game, Friend B doesn't pay anything and downloads the free Friends Pass. Friend B can receive a game invite from Friend A and they can play the game together. This was also done in It Takes Two, and it works like a charm with no issues at all. And I know that because that's how I played It Takes Two. My brother had the full game, and I downloaded the Friends Pass. And at the time of writing, I'm actually playing through It Takes Two again with another friend who never played it before. And once again, I'm using the Friends Pass, works like a charm. Secondly, Hazelight has created an official Discord server for their fans. And in that Discord server, there are channels dedicated to all three of their games and specific channels in each of those where you can find someone to play with. and hopefully someone is kind enough to where you can get in contact and play the game together. And the best part is that they don't even have to be on the same platform, as this game is fully cross-platform. So if you want to play and experience this game, but maybe you don't have a friend to play with, and or the $50 price point is not something you can swing, you can still fully experience the game. Hazelight has done realistically everything they can to remove the barriers to entry to play this. It is not so often that companies nowadays, especially video game companies, are so consumer friendly, and Hazelight, I feel, deserves to be recognized for that. If you are someone who wants to play this game but is roadblocked by price or needing a friend, I have linked an invite to the Hazelight Discord server in the description below. Now with that done, let's get to the actual game. As discussed, this is a fully co-op game, but it's not just co-op in name. This game doubles down and makes teamwork a key part of every aspect through level design. It seems like every step of every level, you come across a quick little puzzle or roadblock that requires both of your attention in order to progress. There are virtually no times where one player is needed and the other one doesn't need to be engaged in the activity. This makes for all kinds of fun moments and memories. More often than not, my brother and I would mess around purposefully, killing each other as we were completing the puzzles. This would make completing puzzles a lot of fun and a little more of a challenge than they needed to be, and I love that Hazelight, even in this very, very linear game and curated experience, still lets the players make some fun of their own and can still create some player-driven moments. But what gave me the drive to keep on going in this game was just how beautiful it is. Now, it obviously is not going for realism, as pretty much the entire game takes place in sci-fi and fantasy universes, but it is exactly that lack of realism that makes this game look so beautiful. I love looking at amazingly realistic graphics just as much as the next guy, but the vistas this game contains and the visuals it serves you is amazing, as well as plentiful. One that springs to mind was during a side story, more on those later, where you have to contain a collapsing star, and just the view of the star in the background as you have to take cover from the heat waves it emits is just such an amazing sight to me. But there are many other times in both the sci-fi and fantasy setting that made me stop for a few seconds just to take it all in. And this is made even easier when at times you and your pal are running along a path of some kind and the camera pans out to reveal an outstanding backdrop that, although these moments are not real in the real world or even in the game world, as all these events are taking place in the minds of Mio and Zoe. But at that time, when I saw those settings, how beautiful they are, it felt real to me and furthermore proves that video games are art. But I did mention side stories earlier, so I do want to dive into that a little bit more. Side stories are these little bubbles you can find that are kind of on their own, standalone, shorter adventures, oftentimes throwing in a new mechanic or gameplay element that you get a chance to check out for really only a bit. I jumped into this game a little late, maybe like a week or two after it was released, and because of that, I was able to hear some of the feedback around it, and a couple of outlets claim the side stories are borderline the best part of the game. Now, I don't know if I fully agree with that statement, but I still fully believe these are worth your time. My brother and I actually made sure we did them all, which it is kind of hard to miss these in my opinion, as one of the characters usually say something like, "Oh, look, a side story," and then it will be easy to spot. Side stories always take place in the opposite world you are in. For example, if you are in the fantasy world, the side story will take place in the sci-fi world, and the area around the bubble to start it will be adorned with sci-fi aesthetic, and vice versa for the stories found in the sci-fi world. So I'm sure you can imagine that they kind of stick out like a sore thumb, especially when there's a bunch of sci-fi stuff in a fantasy world or the other way around. Trust me, you won't want to miss these. They are often quite short, no more than 10 minutes, I would say, and they throw in a good shake-up in the middle of the level. Sometimes they even contain little competitions for the two players and forces you guys into a quick little rivalry before you guys have to go back to working together. And the last of the positives I want to talk about is the ending. Don't worry, no spoilers, and I won't talk about it for long for that reason. But this cannot go unsaid. The ending of this game, in my opinion, is an absolute all-timer and in the Hall of Fame. Both from a unique aspect as well as from a technical standpoint. I will sum it up like this. I have been gaming ever since I was in the first grade when my parents bought me and my brother a PlayStation 2. Actually, I think it was even before that. Now I think about it, I think it was like preschool or kindergarten I was in, because we moved to a new house when I was in first grade, and we had that PlayStation long before that. But all that to say, I am a lifelong gamer, and in my, I don't know, give or take 20 years of gaming, probably more, I cannot remember anything I played that had such a wild section like this. It broke my brain, but in the best way possible, and I'll leave it at that. The very last aspect I want to talk about this game is really the only negative I can think of, and that is the writing. As I mentioned before, I have played every Hazelight game, and Split Fiction's biggest issue is also their other games' biggest issue, and that is the writing. I personally feel like the writing is what holds these games back for me. Hazelight understandably tries to make their games feel very heartfelt and emotional at times, and I like that they try, but overall it just kind of misses the mark for me and comes off as maybe a little heartfelt at best and very cringy at worst. And Split Fiction is no exception. I wouldn't say it takes away from the game at all, as it is still a lot of fun and very easily can be enjoyed, but at the same time, it certainly doesn't add to it or make the game any better. I really hope that Hazelight Studio steps up their writing for their fourth entry, which according to Joseph Ferris, the head of the studio, when he was on the Friends Per Second podcast, is already in production at some capacity. When I recently talked about the game Wanderstop, link in description, I said that the game is very simple, not a lot of mechanics, but is very enjoyable, and stated that it is a game that is greater than the sum of its parts. Split Fiction, I'm not going to say is the opposite, but it is just as good as the sum of its parts, as there are a lot of parts here. Every level and every side story throws a new mechanic, or in some cases, several new mechanics at you. You are constantly cycling through a revolving door of new abilities to explore, to learn, and to perfect, which at this point might be the next thing that is synonymous with Hazelight. And it is for that reason I might have enjoyed It Takes Two a little more. Although I have played all of Hazelight's games, I did play them out of order. It Takes Two was the first one I did, then A Way Out, and then obviously Split Fiction was third. With It Takes Two being my first experience with the studio, it was a whirlwind of amazing gameplay, and much like Split Fiction, was a gauntlet of new mechanics. And with that being my first experience with the studio, it was a nice surprise to experience a game like that. A Way Out is a little more of a grounded and realistic experience, so although it was still a good game, the Hazelight team had to work kind of within those confines and weren't really allowed to let their imagination shine as much as they were with their later two games. But with me being pretty familiar with Hazelight when Split Fiction released, I kind of knew what to expect, and at no fault of the studio, having some idea of what to expect I feel took away a little from the experience. And although it seems I do not enjoy these games as much as most people, I still have an absolute ton of fun with them, and will no question be looking forward to playing their fourth game, regardless of what it is. The studio head Joseph Ferris is, let's say, a confident individual when it comes to games he and his studio create. He has said that his in-house company motto is fuck shit up without fucking up. And to be quite honest, I would say they're doing things that no other game studio is doing and living up to that motto. They have the Friends Pass, encouraging couch co-op play, and not nickel and diming their player base to death, and all while making such amazing games. As confident as Joseph Ferris is, and with how much he broadcasts this confidence, for better or for worse, I think he has fully earned it. And in that same Friends Per Second podcast episode, Joseph Ferris, in his own fashion, was saying how groundbreaking, revolutionary, and amazing Hazelight's next game will be. And especially after playing Split Fiction, frankly, I have no reason to doubt him.
That about themselves.
This isn't just about your stories. It's about harnessing pure creativity.
Sure, and then what?
Well, I can produce...
Again, I may not enjoy these games as much as other people, but I still fully have a good time playing them. But hopefully not as much as you enjoyed watching this video. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I appreciate it so much. If you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. It goes a long way for us here at Milkman Media. Like before, I will be making a video on Atom Fall next. But honestly, at the time of recording this, I had already finished Atom Fall. So I got some good video game videos in the pipe works. Always, they're coming. The plumber's wrenching and they're flowing through the pipes. But I didn't want to mention I was playing this game, as with me completing it relied very heavily on someone else. I wasn't super sure when I would get this done, so didn't want to say anything about it. And especially like God knows what, like, oh, your Elder Scrolls 6 got announced God knows how long ago, and we haven't even seen a lick of that outside of that reveal trailer, but I digress. I just didn't want to go down that path to say. But yeah, anyway, I'm already done with Adamfall. I got a lot of thoughts on it, and I definitely will be making a video on it. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that, as well as any other your food and gaming needs. Lastly, let's talk about Split Fiction or anything Hazelight in the comments. Given how unique that studio and their games are, I would love to hear your thoughts on Split Fiction as well as their other 2 games or anything else that's on your mind I'd love to talk about. Thanks so much for watching. I love you. And I'll see you in the next one.